Across the country, union leaders are standing together and sending a clear message. We are united, we are strong, and we are not backing down. On Rights Watch, we're highlighting those voices, the people on the front lines of this fight, through our videos and through our special segment that we're calling Stories. This is where we step back from the politics and the policies and focus on the people, their journeys, their struggles, and their victories. Because behind every contract, every fight, and every rally, there are real lives driving the movement forward. So hang on tight. Let's get right to today's story. You won't want to miss it. I'm Dan Rivera Jr., and you're watching Rights Watch. Joined by Brandi Morris. You may also know her as VA Union Mama. Brandi is the president of AFGE Local 0446 in Asheville, North Carolina. Brandi has spent decades in the federal service and years as a union leader representing employees across multiple agencies. Today, she's here to share her story, the work she and her local are doing, and the challenges federal employees are facing right now. Before we dive in, if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you never miss an episode. And if you're tuning in anywhere else, follow us and leave a comment. It helps us grow and keep bringing these important conversations going. And if you have a story that you want to share, don't forget to reach out to us. We would love to have you on our show. All right, Brandi. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. I've been a follower and I'm excited to be a part of it.
I'm excited to have you here too. I've seen some of your videos too, and I like the work that you've been doing. You're very active,
Yeah.
and we need a lot of people that are active on this fight. So I appreciate what you're doing for this movement. Brandi, I just want to get started with your story. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in the federal service?
Okay, so I was 20 years old and I was in college and I was looking for a part-time job that I could just make a little bit of money but still go to school. And there was a position open in the kitchen at the VA in Asheville, North Carolina. And it was from 4 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. And I had to serve patients their trays, like their dinner trays, and then leave. And I was, it was decent money, had some insurance with it, and holidays off or paid, double pay, all the things. So it worked out really well while I was, in school. So I started just doing that mainly just to have a job when I was in school. And then here I am. I mean, 24 years later, I stayed and I started working I applied for a full-time position in a place called the Centralized Revenue Unit, which is now known as the CPAC. And I just stayed in that department I worked my way up through insurance and billing and accounts receivable. And 16 or 17 years ago. And that's when I started really getting into the union portion of it, and I loved it and helping others. And I ran for positions and I was elected, and here I am. So I've been on official time for the past 14 years at 100% until as of late, as the recent EO. So it was, I mean, back in 2016 in Trump's first administration, there was like a year or so that I was at home working. If it was even that long, I can't remember really, because that was also during the pandemic. So, but as far as, this has been kind of a big shock to try to do my tour duty, what my FTE is for, and then also do my union work after hours,
Right.
because I still
Yeah.
have 3 other agencies other than the Veterans Affairs. So I have 3 other agencies that I work with.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that those that work on your union are also employees of the agency, and some work actively, some work part time, some work full time, like you were for the longest time, and 100% official time. And what Trump did, and what Collins did, uh, uh, earlier last month, when he stripped us away of the official time, he made people like you go back to their regular job duties, but then you're still expected to do your union work.
Now I'm
So
still, I was elected. I was elected, and I think a lot of the misunderstanding right now is people thinking, oh, well, since the agency isn't recognizing the contract, like you guys don't really have anything to do. And if anything, it's the opposite. It's been even more because as they continue to break a contract that AFGE still recognizes, we continue to file because we
right.
recognize the contract. And that's what I've been told to do. That's the guidance I've been given by, AFGE leadership.
Right. Just because you're breaking the law, that it doesn't mean that stops that we have to stop doing our jobs. So, Brandi, what inspired you to get involved with AFG in the first place, and eventually stepped into this position? How did you end up? How did you end up
So,
here?
it's kind of a funny story. Like, I mean, it's not funny, but it was, I'm a big believer, and believe in this now. People don't care about a lot of things that they should until they're personally affected. And I'm guilty of that. I had had my second child, and I had exhausted all of my leave during maternity leave, and I came back to work, and I was a nursing mother. So I needed a place to pump and, do all that during my breaks. And I went to our union, the chief steward of the union, because I didn't have anywhere to go. I was walking to my car, and trying to do it in my car, but it was like really cold. It was the middle of winter, and you know I just I didn't have a space. So I went to the union, and the chief steward said, well, you can use my office for now, but we need to get you a space. Well, in that also process, sometimes it would take me a little bit longer than 15 minutes to do what I needed to do. I had to pump, I had to clean up, I had to store, and then I might need to use the restroom, get a snack, make a personal phone call. 15 minutes was not enough. Well, my supervisor at the time gave me AWOL. She gave me AWOL for like 15 minutes because one day I came back late. And even after I had expressed to her that I was having a hard time, you know, getting back timely, and she gave me the AWOL. I took it to Christine, who was this chief steward at the time. She's actually the national vice president of District 4 now. And she not only got rid of the AWOL, but she, bargained that we had a mother's room. She found it in the Affordable Care Act. Not only do I get a mother's room, and all mothers get a mother's room, but in the Affordable Care Act, it said an adequate amount of time. It didn't say 15 minutes. Of course, they want you to use your 15 minutes with that break. So I just saw how much she cared, and how not only did it get taken care of, it helped people for future use. And that mother's room is still there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's beautiful. It's nice, comfortable. There's a refrigerator in there to where people can, store their things without having to store them in a break room with everyone's food. And there's dim lighting and privacy and just all the things that you would need. And after that happened, I knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. And I also loved how she found the rules and regulations. It was in black and white. There was no gray area. This is the rules. This is the law. And just how it was all handled. I knew I wanted to be a part of that.
Right. Well, it's so interesting because the union. A lot of times we think of the union, we think about the master agreement, we think about the contract, but a lot of times unions are able to look at because they're there for that reason. They look at everything that's labor related, and we can correlate and make sure that the agencies are also following the law. So in
Right.
your case, they were able to find this provision, which allowed you to get a sufficient amount of time. and then you were able to use it. And what's interesting is that you were being uh, punished for using that time before this. They were trying to give you AWOL. They always say that AWOL is not a punishment, but of course, whenever behind every line, but whenever they tell you you're getting AWOL, this is not a punishment. But behind that, they say we can use it at
Right.
some point for some form of punishment. So it's really dubious in that sense. So that's just one of the great examples of why unions are so important in the workplace, because a lot of managers are ignorant on the laws and the different things that people are entitled to when it comes to the workplace. A lot of times it's so unfair that they were expecting you to use your 15-minute breaks
Right.
when, I have, and my wife is, I have two beautiful daughters. I have another one on the way, and I know that she's gonna need probably sometimes she's gonna need more than 15 minutes.
Right. It's it was funny, like when we were talking to management about it, you know, we had to explain to management. No one in that room had birthed a child and had gone through that before, any of the management that we were speaking with. And we had to explain, it's not like a faucet, it's not something that you can turn on and off, and you still have to do proper things to take care of yourself. And I'm at work and I'm nursing my child, which makes my child healthier, studies have proven, so I continue to work. And my supervisor like, well, we would let you take an annual leave. I'll give you annual leave. And I'm like, I don't have, first of all, I have exhausted all of my leave because I just had a baby. So I don't have leave. And I shouldn't have to take leave to do that. So, and now we don't have to, and it's great.
Yeah, yeah, and
I feel like something you just said about management and just being ignorant. They also depend a lot on ERLR, and they're also not informed, and they're just guidance. ERLR is just guidance to management, and it's frustrating that they just say something and they take it as the gospel and without researching it. And then we're able to come back with a contract or with laws or policies and say, no, this is how it is. And, you know, usually we can get it worked out that way, but
yes.
it's
Well, ELR, they're employee. For those who don't know, they are employee labor relations, and these people work for the agents.
mhm,
These are this is the HR portion. This is a portion of HR that deals with labor management relations, but they work for the agency.
mhm,
So at the end of the day, they can advise all they want. The agencies are still going to try to do whatever they want to do. And a lot of times these people are not well informed. You're right about that. They are not well informed.
mhm.
I,
And
I
there's a large turnover. The turnover is large, so the training is not, it's not as
yes,
efficient as
that
staying.
yes, that was going to be my next point. Is that their training is not on par. Yeah, our union officers, our union stewards are very well trained. And not only that, we deal with this stuff every day. And these people, they don't necessarily have to come from this background. They don't necessarily have to come from a government background. And then all of a sudden they get put into a government position without much knowledge, much experience, maybe a dislike or distaste for the union. So really, they should be there for the employees, but they're really there for the agencies, and that's where AFG, our union, is so vital in the workplace, because a lot of people don't see this part of our job. People don't see that behind the scenes. They don't see where we have to sit with employee labor relations and managers, and discuss all these things, negotiate all these things, and I'm so glad that even today that nursery room is still there. I mean, that's just a great example
Mhm,
of great union leadership, and the importance of it. So that is so great. Um, the the way that you ended up there, because you ended up there from a place of necessity,
mhm,
right? You ended up there at a point where you saw value, not only just value in being in the union, but also you were inspired by the work that the union did for other people. So you came from a place where you want to do the same for others.
Right. And I remember when I went to the chief steward, she contacted the president over the phone just to kind of, let him know what was going on. And she had him on speakerphone. And the way that he jumped in there and was like, you better get down there and tell them. I mean, he was supportive of it too. And a lot of times in the government, you see management and leadership in the government for the agency. They don't want to make a decision. They've got to, you know, ask and get guidance and go up and up and up and up. And I love the way that the union just they just made the decision and they knew and it was the right thing to do. Um, and the support that they gave each other. And I was like,
Right.
that's what a union is.
Right.
When we come together collectively, we can get anything we want, and it's that was what inspired me to be, and now here I am, 17 years later, I'm active. I'm the president of our local union, and I'm active with my Central Labor Council. I'm the treasurer of the Central Labor Council here in
Right.
Western North Carolina, and just any kind of action I can get a hold of and be out there, with, if it's NNU or AFT or Postal Workers Union, whatever. I'm out there. I'm standing with them in solidarity.
Yeah. Now, you know that um now there's a big issue. And I we at least in my local we work with VA, and VA is not the only agency. Practically a lot of agencies now don't recognize the master agreement. And for us, there's a challenge where we uh agencies are telling employees you don't have a union anymore,
Right.
which by the way, it's illegal. They're persuading people against unionization, against union membership, but that's a whole separate issue by itself. I mean,
Right.
this administration that we're facing right now doesn't deal in the legal realm. They deal on the let's let's break the law now, and if we can get away with it, great, and if we don't get away with it, then
Exactly.
we tried. And then and they'll appeal, and this is what they do. But we have this challenge now where um a lot of people buy into this, where they're thinking, oh, I don't have a union anymore just because the agency told me I don't have a union. I don't have a union anymore. Can you share with us some of the challenges that you guys are experiencing right now?
Yeah. So it started with us. It really started when with the VHA with the VA, when payroll deduction was stopped. And people are calling. We had been flipping people over to EDUs. We had been having events. We had been shooting out all kinds of things on Broad Stripes, which is like a communications tool as far as emails, social media, all the things. But when it actually happened and people hadn't switched over, other people started calling like, hey, since payroll deduction stopped and the union is gone, I want to go ahead and cancel my dues. And we're like, the union's not going anywhere, the union's still fighting. And then when our contract was stripped in August, was it August? Yeah, maybe the week before, I can't remember. Anyway, when that was stripped, that really amped it up, and people were like, well, my manager told me that there wasn't a union anymore. And I'm like, I'm gonna need that in writing, and I'm gonna need to know the name of your manager. And because that's not true. And so we've lost a lot of union members, and we were really lucky transferring people over to EDUs, but it's been so many people leaving because of the DRP, because of the garbage they've had to deal with. I mean, the 5 bullet points, return to the office, the RIF process, you know, um, just all the what else, the DRP, the fork in the road, all the different the reorgs that are happening, and now the stripping of collective bargaining rights. People are just leaving, and when people leave the federal government, of course, we're going to let them. Of course, we're going to drop them, but because they're not federal employees, they're not going to be paying union dues anymore. But it's been a struggle. In our local, we've cut off like 90% of travel, any training, any travel. because we want to save all that money for litigation and to take that money up on Capitol Hill to fight the fight for federal employees. And it's really been a struggle, when people just don't understand that we're still here just because our offices are gone, and just because we're not on official time, and the agency isn't recognizing the contract. Sure, those are concerning things, but come to your union meetings. Come and find out what's going on. Follow AFGE on social media. Follow this podcast. Follow me, and when I'm shooting off the mouth on social media, and we'll try to give you guys some information, not just because management told you the union was gone. They want, that's what they want, because we're the only ones that hold them accountable. So this is a perfect time for them to really, milk this whole situation, but it's going to come back and bite them because it's illegal. and and to tell staff that. So once we get people call, and my the lady that Miss Weinman, she's our treasurer and for the local, and she's been doing a great job of when people contact her and say, hey, I want out since my contract's not being recognized. She's been great about talking to them about, this is why you need to stay in, this is what's going on, and most of them stay. And so it's, think about that personal connection instead of just getting some email shot out to someone like, hey, we're still here, don't stop paying your dues. We have, like, Maureen is actually on the phone saying, hey, listen, we're still here, we need you to stay with us, fight with us, and they're like, oh, well, we thought you guys were gone, and they'll stay. But it's just one more bit of time to tell everyone what's really going on, because the agency is not saying anything. They don't want to say anything to the employees now at this point, because they've already told them. Some of the supervisors are like, oh, the union's gone, you should drop your dues. But as far as like town halls or large scale emails about the union, like, we're not even there. And I think people just see people are moving into our old offices and that we're not there on official time. And it's concerning, and I get it, but they've got to be active. They got to find out what's going on. They've got to educate themselves on these things. And
Yeah, there's a lot of work that still goes on behind on the background. I mean, you know, grievances was really, I guess, one of the biggest part of our role as a union, raising all these different grievances through our grievance procedure. We at least in our agency, we are raising grievances that through the agency grievance, the internal agency grievance process, um, just to show that it's something that we can still do. We're still doing it. We're still representing,
absolutely.
and you always want somebody on your side. And people have to understand this is what I don't get, Brandi, is why do people think that these people have your best interest in mind? They don't. All they want is for you to lose as many rights as you can so that they can get away with as much as they can. And at the end of the day, like I've told some people, union dues are a small price to pay for what's at stake. What's at stake right now? And not just our union rights as federal employees, but labor rights in general. I mean, we're facing an administration that every single day poses a threat to our democracy. I mean, it's insane that you would want to give the government so much power over you and just be happy and content with it. So it's not only that; it's our jobs are at risk. No due process through our jobs. Nothing. And it's a big thing that people need to understand. And I think right now, and as the time goes on, people will start understanding a little more the importance, because nobody, and this is the saying that I always have, is you never know what you have until you lose it. And
Right.
once we start seeing changes, and once we start seeing people getting laid off, and people being treated unfairly, and people being treated disproportionately, people are going to understand this is why we need the union on our side. So
Right.
yeah,
And
go ahead, Brandi.
sorry, you just made such a good point. I mean, you know, think about how much millions and millions of dollars the administration and the Heritage Foundation and all these anti-union, like union busting places spend to get rid of us. Why? Why would they spend that much money? Because if they can get rid of collective bargaining, they can get rid of us easier. There's no due process. They can fire us at will. They can pull in contractors. They can hold those contracts. And oligarchy, once again, at its finest, someone can hold a government contract, and pay them, and not pay them, not give them the dues and the wages, the living wages that they deserve. And it's just it's easier to privatize and contract everything out. If they privatize it, then the government can make money off of it. And
Right.
for people not to see that, and then everybody was celebrating like the agency, like, oh yay, like Secretary Collins figured everything out and we don't have a RIF process. The RIFs are off the table.
Uh,
No, the contract's about to be canceled. Now they can fire it at will. So they didn't have to
Yeah.
have a RIF process because now they can just fire.
Brandi, why would anybody? Why, if I were an agency director, why would I support this? Why would I want to put at risk my own job, my own federal career? I mean, this is the type of stuff people don't realize is, if you're the director of an agency, it doesn't mean that you're saved. They are selling you something that it's not going to benefit you at the end, because if they privatize, you're not going to have your benefits as just just like anybody else. You can lose your job just like everybody else. So what's really the benefit? What are these people selling to these directors and these higher management people, that they're so happy that the union is gone? They don't realize that even their jobs are at stake without a union fighting
And
on the front lines.
that email, so the day that my staff and I found out that we were being take that union that we were going to be no more official time and union space was gone. We got an email. I got it at 10 a.m. on a Friday morning, August the 8th, and it said for us to return to our positions at noon. So that was 2 hours to get all four of my union offices cleaned out with the help of my team, and be back at work in 2 hours. And I'm sure you got it. That's terrible, awful email talking about how unions were a threat to domestic,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
security and union bosses, and they could hire without union interference, which the email was disgusting. I'm
Yes.
sure to send the email back to executive leadership and let them know that, and to also let them know that they're not going to there's a good chance they won't come out of this unscathed either, just like you said. Their head is on the chopping block too. And it's it I don't know, it blows my mind how they think any of this would be good for the veteran. Federal employees, 30% of them are veterans. So how would that be good for any federal employee that's taking care of our veterans? And as of late, our emergency room, I do not know, like this week, but I know for during the summer, mostly it has been closed. It's been on full diversion. So that means when a employee or a veteran comes for care, they can't get care because there's not enough staff to take care of them, and there's not enough beds for the patients. So they would send them to our local for-profit hospital, which is awful. It's a HCA hospital. If you have any experience with those, they're terrible. And they're there with the civilians, not getting the care they deserve, not getting the care that they were promised. And how and I know that our executive leadership isn't happy about that because they want as many veterans to come in and see us as they can, but they keep getting rid of staff. We can't do it. We have no one to take care of them. And
It's insane.
it's super frustrating. It's insane. And I remember, like, was it Secretary Collins came down to the Asheville to RVA early in his appointment, and said, well, we're getting rid of people, like we got rid of the interior decorator. And that was just, and everybody's like, yeah, good job. That's ridiculous. An interior decorator. You know, she's not picking out pink and fuchsia. She's making that people have correct lighting where they're sitting so they can see to do their jobs, that they've got the tools that they need as far as chairs and cubicles and patient things for the patient rooms, the patient areas that they're getting exams. Like, it's not just about picking out paintings, but the
Right.
facade that the administration feeds and the propaganda that they feed to federal employees and just you know the nation is it's really disheartening, especially when I've been there for 24 years. I know exactly what the interior decorator does, because I've had to go in there with her in safety rounds, and we've had to look at certain things when we walk around in safety rounds. And but that facade is, but people believe.
Right. Well, decoration in a hospital setting is purposeful. There's a purpose to everything when it comes to a hospital, and you're getting rid of somebody that has has to go through that process to how is this going to affect our veterans, like even certain colors, if you're in a dementia unit or something like that, how is it going to affect our veterans? Is it going to is this type of lighting, is it going to affect the way it shines on the floors? Are we going to have people falling down? I mean, it's so complicated, but they dumb it down to a point where they make it feel simple enough that there's an interior decorator, we don't need him. I mean,
Right.
it's
And
insane.
yeah, it's just, maybe they needed to change the name of it from interior decorator to, I don't know, just a different name. It would make people feel more comfortable, but they mislabeled that, and they gave people the wrong information, and they're like, "Oh, good, they're trimming the fat. They're trimming the fat. That's great." It's like, oh,
But then you have chief after chief after chief of a associate chief, associate director of the chief, and you have all these positions that make. I mean, one of these people make the salary of three or four high paying jobs. I mean, if you're talking about lower paying jobs, I mean, you can hire a lot more people for the salary of one of these people that nobody knows what they do. And quite frankly, it's probably not essential. I mean, you
right.
have people that you need on the hospital that are essential, but then you're choosing to pay somebody this outrageous salary that where you could probably replace this person with five people that can make your agency work better,
Well,
right?
yeah, and I'm sure you remember, Danny, back in 2017 or 18, when the Trump administration pushed the Accountability Act, and for that was supposed to be for higher level, like you're saying,
Hmm.
chiefs, all the chiefs
Right,
and executive management to really be looked at those positions,
right.
and those positions being removed. But that's not how that worked. It rolled down to bargaining unit, and the people that were dismissed and separated from the agency were your lower GS levels, your WGs, your housekeepers, your cooks, your you know um lower paid admin. Of course, AFG filed on that, and we won, and we did get all those jobs back, but it cost the taxpayer. you know
Yeah.
every time it's going to turn around and cost the taxpayer because they didn't do it right the first time.
Yeah, and it always these mistakes always cost the taxpayer. I mean, you know, right now there's so much unnecessary litigation going on a case where they know they're gonna lose
Yep.
because they just want to try to do something and get away with it, and if not, they just want to try to push a narrative, an agenda, try to portray, uh, being having rights is something that's not benefiting for the people, and painting unions and painting workplace rights as something negative. I mean, let's be honest. Is the unions the ones that are really in the middle of hiring in the workplace? No, we're the people who are always fighting for hiring in the workplace because we can always use more people. But again, it's just like you said earlier, it's propaganda. That's what it is.
Mhm. And
So
yeah, and like you just said, remember in that email we got that said that unions were impeding the hiring process. Like,
yes,
come on. If anything,
Who's impeding it now?
Yeah, yeah, and we're the ones to make sure that you guys are giving it a fair and equitable shake, that you aren't out there direct hiring your, mama, daddy, sister, brother. That there is a fair and equitable process. And just that whole the way it made it sound just was disgusting.
Right. And then and when it comes to accountability, I just wanted to say um the agencies will never make themselves accountable for anything.
Mm-mm.
If anything, they'll make you accountable. They make the people accountable for stuff that is not their fault. And that's where we step in. That's where I mean, that's the majority of my job has been looking at the processes where the agencies have failed and say, listen, what you're trying to punish this person for something that was clearly your mistake because you don't have enough staff, because you don't have the right equipment, because you're not looking at these processes that are at the end are making your employee fail. So you're really setting up your employees for failure. Now, and they'll
Right.
never look at it that way. They're never going to look at themselves and say, we are the ones who are messing up. Maybe we should do something about it.
I mean, and that's so right, and it's always been that way. What's good for the goose is not always good for the gander in that respect. And it just like it blows my mind now. Like, in order for me to put in for a position, if there wasn't a freeze on hiring, I have to qualify for that job. I have to have specialized experience in that position to just qualify for the job to get an interview.
Yeah.
But I don't see anyone in his cabinet that's done any of that. I mean, they're not, they're that's not just it's not good for it's not good for the goose. So I mean, they just do
It
what they
looks like
want.
it looks like one of the only requirements you need to work in this administration is having your own podcast. So maybe I have a chance, but they're not going to like me, so I'm not going to be in their cabinet. But
I mean,
but really, you have people that don't have the experience, the knowledge to run agencies, to run. Like I'll say it, run the FBI, run DHS. Right? How can you have a lawyer running an agency that looks at our medical? I mean, and
the
then pushes
Department of
out.
the
Yeah,
Department
and
of
then
Defense, Department of Education.
Department of Education
I mean,
and all these different agencies. These people are not qualified, but because they're yes men, because they push a political agenda,
and they
because they had the power to and the platform to get our current president the votes. That's why they're there.
right,
No, nothing more than loyalty, and this is what they're wanting to do, and this is what they want out of the current government employees is loyalty, not to the government, not to our constitution. They could care less about the constitution, but all they want is loyalty to the man behind the White House.
yeah,
So going back to your story, Brandi, and we talked about some of the challenges that we're facing right now, but I want to touch on some of the wins that you guys have had over the years. What's one of your most notable wins that you've had on your agency? If you can share that with us.
we've had quite a few, and you know how those go. Those go for years or months and months, sometimes years, and then when you finally get that off the arbitrator, it's good stuff. One of my most recent was at the hospital, and there was a supervisor, well, a manager, and pretty much just bullying the whole department. The whole department came to me in solidarity, and these were professionals. These were nurse practitioners. These were physicians assistants, and they were just having a really hard time. I initiated a fact finding with ERLR, and it went to a AIB, which is gosh, what's it called? You know what an AIB is? It's like when the government initiates it to a higher level, and interviewed all of the staff, including the person being charged of being intimidating and bullying, and and that staff member does not work there anymore, and we won that, and it took months. I mean, months and months of interviews. My fact finding wasn't thorough. The one we did with the ERLR wasn't thorough enough. It went to Inspector General. They got a hold of it. They started working on it, and yeah, that was a good one. We also had a sexual harassment case at another agency that I work for, and it was with the national parks. And I don't know if you remember, about 10 years ago, there was a big problem with females working in the national parks and being sexually harassed or just harassed, period. And we took that to arbitration and we won. That one was huge. And we got all the things back for this employee, back pay, reinstated, because they fired her when it was reported. Um, we had another agency a couple of years ago that I worked for that a supervisor was sexually harassing staff. She brought it to our local union. We filed an EEO on her behalf, and that supervisor has been terminated, and she received close to $200,000. And um, you know, like you were saying earlier, people don't understand the importance of unions. Even though we decided to file a EEO on that case, not a grievance, she she is never, the employee that was the victim has never been in that situation before. And the agency was sitting there when she filed that EEO telling her that she should just um, do mediation. And we both know when we do mediation that that's pretty much saying that's what, of course, the agency is going to push mediation because that's going to just push it under the rug, and they've
Yeah, they
addressed
don't
it.
want any
And
filings on that. They can just push it under the rug.
right. And they can say we addressed it and she mediated and fine. And we were like, no, you are not going to mediate. You're going to keep pushing. And she did, and she won. Um, a big one we had, probably one of the most, and I learned so much on this case. We had a employee on the Blue, so I represent the National Park Service as well here at the Blue Ridge Parkway. And we had a we had a bargaining unit employee that had an issue with one of our union stewards, to the point that they called some anti-union group and wanted our union busted. And they didn't want a union anymore. Ironically, her husband was in management there. So
Huh.
she had a lot of help getting to that place, and it went like we had to get all of the employees, the bargaining employees on the parkway, to vote if they wanted to remain a union or not. And it's not like you can just send an email to a lot of these folks because they're out in the field. They're law enforcement officers driving up and down the parkway. They're maintenance. They're out working on tractors and mowers. They're maintenance, mowing grass, fixing roads. So we literally had to take annual leave, and we would just on foot up there on that parkway, stopping at all the visitor centers, stopping at all the maintenance buildings, talking to these folks about how important it is to keep their union. And they did have a vote, and it voted that they wanted to keep their union. And it took months. We had fantastic representation with Miss Kathy McQuiston up in Washington D.C. and with AFGE, and she killed it, and she did everything she could, and we were really excited about that because we got to keep that agency, and these people got to keep a contract. So
Yeah.
that was a big win for us. There's just so many, and we've had a lot. We've been very lucky, like you said earlier, Danny. AFGE has got fantastic training. I mean, the training is so thorough. Our folks are so smart and knowledgeable, and you just come back with that extra just oomph, and that you're ready to just fight again. You just like that refresher. And I'm very thankful for that guidance. I learn every day. you know
It's a learning experience every day, but you're right that the training we get is excellent. And I some managers, they just ask, can you help me understand this? Can you, because
Yeah,
not even the agency trains them well to understand what they're supposed to do.
that's right.
So, and this only happens when you have good relationship with management, and you do get those that do want to do good by the employees. So I applaud those
Absolutely.
very few that do that, and continue to do that during this time as well. Um, and I know for a fact that the agency training is terrible. I don't know if you were part of, or if you attended the Title 38 training whenever they abolished the board that would essentially promote RNs,
Right.
and they switched now to where it goes directly to the supervisors. And I attended their training, and it was a VA training. It was an AFGE training, and I remember asking questions. Not a single question was answered. I mean, what are we doing? You provide a training, but then you can't really answer any of the questions that people make you. And if that was that was just one training, I can't imagine the rest of the trainings that they do with these poor people that go into it without knowing what they're supposed to be doing.
I was at a NVAC safety training to get my OSHA certification. And when I was there, I had met another lady from, I want to say she was from Chicago, and she was from ERLR. And we would invite them to come to those trainings if they wanted to, for the safety trainings. And, the agency, of course, would pay for their half or what, well, they'd pay for us too in the contract. But anyway, she told me, she's like, every time I see, even though I work for the agency, every time I see an MVAC training or an AFG training that we are allowed to be a part of, I jump right on it because it's just such great training, so knowledgeable, so helpful. They'll take you aside. They give you your email address so you can call and ask them a question, just things like that. And, and that shows a lot for, and like you said,
Wh-
management contacting us wanting to know what to do because they can't get proper guidance, or when they do get guidance from ERLR and then we file on it because they didn't do it per the contract, they get frustrated because they would have just called us in the first place. I've got a lot of management that are actually dues paying members, and I've had a few more join since eDues because now payroll doesn't have a list of who's in our union and who's not. So
Right,
it's all AFG internal, and
right.
I've got quite a few management that pays into, that pays their dues, and they know they can't be represented in a disciplinary action, but they just support the working class, they support labor, and those benefits and rights in the workplace that we all deserve.
Yes, absolutely. And we all have to be on this together. At the end of the day, and people forget what a union is, right? That it's a collective of people, right? That are united in solidarity for a purpose, and our purpose in this fight is to protect our rights. And this is just the biggest threat I've ever seen against employee rights, not just in the federal government, but it's going to trickle down to the private sector. It's going to be so big. If we lose this fight, if people stop fighting, we're going to end up with no rights at all.
That
We're going to end up in a dictatorship. We're going to end up, and there's so many red flags going on nowadays. And I look at the news every single day. I can't believe I live in the United States of America. It feels like I live in another country where people don't have any rights. And it's sad that our court system is really not behind us at this time. It's really we're living at a sad time. But at the same time, I'm glad that people like you, people like the agencies like AFGE, we're still fighting, we're still litigating, we're still on the back ends, and these managers that you're talking about, they don't have to pay, they don't have to support labor, but they still do, and that just shows that there is an importance, and these people, a lot of times these people understand because they were employees at some point, they were subordinates, and they were bargaining unit, and they understand the importance of protecting labor rights.
right.
So I'm glad for those.
Even if we can't represent them in a disciplinary action, we're still in our contract keeping them safe on the job, making sure that things are ebbing and flowing so have a safe workspace, and that they the people that work for them are safe and happy. And when your employees are happy, then it's gonna make your job easier, and it's gonna be better care for our veterans.
Yes.
So I mean, some people get it, some people don't. Some people look at us as a threat. I don't, when I file a grievance, I don't take it personally. I don't lose a bit of sleep, but I know management does, and it's not like that. It's just, it's just an oath I took to uphold the contract,
Right.
and when I became president. So, but yeah, you're right. We've got to stick together. I'm very thankful that even though I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, it's a big union town. Everyone, it's we've had unions in this area since for years, decades, generations. And my grandmother actually, she worked for the Southern Railroad, and this was back in like the 40s and early 50s, and she couldn't join a union because she wasn't a woman. She signed her card, ML Rector, and so they didn't know that ML was her, her lady, like Mary Lou. They didn't know that was her name. They thought it was like a man. So she was a dues paying member, but she, you know, she signed up to look like she was a man, and she did not check a gender box at all,
Can
and
you
they just
repeat
let her go
that
through.
part?
So
I'm
she was a
sorry.
dues paying member, and she told me that. Oh, sorry. So my grandmother, she worked for the Southern Railroad or Southern Railways, and she joined the union, and she used her initials ML Rector, her first two initials and her last name, because back then you could not join a union if you were a woman. And so, but she was, hell bent and in the working class, and fair wages. And that was a time that it was really, unions were really up and coming, and she wanted to be there to support that. So she went ahead and signed up under the alias, thinking that she was a man. She did not check a gender box, and when she applied for her application, and then she got her union card in the mail, and she was so proud of that union card, even though it was under false pretense, you know. And the thing is she told me that story years and years ago. But when I first became an employee at the VA, and she told me I needed to join the union, and I didn't really, I was 20 years old. I didn't really know much about unions. And, in the South, you're always told that unions are only for, troublemakers and things like that. And, but she told me that wasn't the truth. And she told me about the history of the Appalachian Mountains and the coal mines, and how imperative that unions were in this area with the mills and textiles and all that. And, you know, I just wish she was alive to see me now, because she wouldn't believe that I was president of the union, and she was sitting here having to sneak and pay union dues. And that's a big push for me too, like personally. It's hard being a Southern Democrat and a union organizer in the South. But I'm lucky enough to be in an area in Asheville that this has always been a union area, and I've got great support from AFGE. I've got great support from my Central Labor Council. A couple weeks ago, I had some of my buddies, they're Teamsters, and they were passing out QR codes to sign the Protect America's Workforce Act on their
Yes.
break. And
Yes.
someone said something hateful about federal employees didn't need a union or something to that effect. And those Teamsters let them have it. And they I wasn't even there. I just heard about it, and they gave them hell, and told them that
Yeah.
all employees deserve, the whole human race deserves rights in the workplace. Doesn't matter what agency, what company, where you work. And that solidarity, it makes me want to keep going. I can't give up, because they're fighting for me right now, and I'm gonna, like you said, it's gonna trickle down. Hopefully not, but if it does, I'll be right there fighting with them when it happens to them.
Right. It's such an inspiring story. Uh, I'm sure was it your granny
Yeah,
that you said? I'm sure she would be so proud.
yeah,
She
I
absolutely
think so too.
would.
Yeah, my mom
Uh,
talks about it a lot. She's like, "Oh, well, your grandmother would be so excited." Um, she went through it. She wasn't able to vote till she couldn't own a home, she couldn't
yes.
be in a union, she couldn't hold a loan, and
Yes.
we've made that progress, and we've come so far to just
Yes.
see it being stripped away little by little. People don't get it. People don't see it because it hasn't affected them yet. When it affects them, just like, kind of to get off a tangent, but on that big beautiful bill, when those Medicaid payments quit coming in, they quit being covered. They're having to close rural hospitals that are way out here in these mountains and in the
Yes,
hills. These people don't even have gas money to come into Asheville to be seen. When it personally affects them, then they'll care. They'll start caring. But
they will.
but until, just like people started caring when their contract got pulled. Wait, what's going on? Can I not keep my compressed day off? What do you mean I lost 4 weeks of FMLA from parental leave? Wait, what do you mean I don't have a telework anymore? What, all the things, I mean, that we have fought for these federal employees. They care now, but it,
And there's more to lose. There's
oh yeah,
absolutely, I mean, this is just the beginning. There's, I'm not fear mongering. I'm not one of those people that fear monger, but we speak a truth. And the truth is that you think this is bad. It's only going to get worse if we stay compliant, if we stay silent, if we don't fight. So, it's so important that Brandi, people like you, you know, uh, local presidents, and even just the regular member that supports their union through their dues. Just anybody that supports their union, it's so important to just keep up the fight.
yeah,
Don't don't quit. Don't give up. Just keep on the fight because our fight right now, although it may be so bad as it is right now, there was a time where there were no rights, and we're on the brink of going back to that era. And the things that these people, the people that fought for these rights, the sacrifices that they made, lives were lost. I mean, it was really a fight. It was really a struggle, and we're facing an administration that wants to go back. Um, uh, when I hear the phrase "Make America Great Again," they're talking about a time where there were no rights.
right.
When they say again, think about when that again is. They're not talking about when do they think America was great? It was great when people had no rights. It was great when agencies could uh,
It
just
was great when
make
white males could run everything without
yes,
anyone that was brown or a woman or had different sexual orientations.
yes.
Yeah, but one,
One of the first things that these people attacked when they got into office was DEI.
right.
And they just have just such a twisted view of what DEI was, and they all they want is to have the same people work, and have the same faces, the same values. They don't. I think Trump said, and this is a topic for another video. On the Charlie Kirk assassination, during his memorial, he said he hates his opponents,
Yeah,
right?
saw that.
So this is the type of man that's running America today. It's a man that hates anything that doesn't value what he values, right? And right now, what he doesn't value is your rights. He doesn't value you as a person. He doesn't value you. He doesn't value the American worker. He doesn't value the people that make this nation run. All they value is their pockets and the end goal, which is to make them the rich richer, right? So that's all I have to say about that. I can go on for hours about this, but um, Brandi, just to finish off, I'll let you go in a minute here. I just want to hear what's your vision for your local 044 sits in the coming years? What do you have in mind for your local?
Well, we're still, I the guys and gals I work with are absolutely phenomenal. The stewards that I work with, the executive officers, and our local, they've been around a long time. They have been federal government employees. There are quite a few of them that are veterans themselves, and they know what's at stake. And I'm, first of all, so lucky to have them. They keep me sane, because this has been a really hard time for all of us. and we take
Yes.
turns stressing out and having a bad day, and then we pick each other up. My goal is, of course, for this to all be overturned, us to get back in the union office and, just keep fighting like we did every single day before. We're still fighting, but we're fighting after hours. And it's hard, you know, um, because we work all day and then we have to not represent, call and talk to someone about something that's going on because we're still helping people work out their FMLA, their workman's comp, all the things
Yes.
we do because management and ERLR don't help them or they don't know how. And we've always helped people with stuff like that. So, and when there are violations of contract, they call us and we file anyway. And, my goal is just to get that contract back. And we're going to have to work. Like you said, we have to fight. We cannot sit down. Yeah, sometimes we need to take a break and we need to just step back for a day and cry and pout and pitch a temper tantrum. And the next day you get your ass back up and you pull up your bootstraps and you just push forward again. Because if we don't do that, everything that we have worked and for so long, like you said, people losing their lives, is what has it been for? That's what they want us to do, and they have the money to do it, but we have the collective power. And I have a lot more in common with a homeless person than I do a billionaire. So I'm going to keep working for the working class. I'm going to keep fighting for the working class. And and these veterans. I love these veterans. I've been working. I'm a third generation VA employee. I was a volunteer at the VA hospital when I was 11 years old, and I've grown up in those halls, and I've been around these veterans my whole life. And for them not to get the care and the respect that they deserve right now, it's just disgusting. I mean, we're here having this conversation right now because of those fellas, and it's just my goal is just to for right now just to get our rights back, to get our contract back, and I think that that'll happen. I really feel I think it's going to take a while. I think it's going to, in the interim, it's going to be hard and it's going to be tough, but we can't give up and we can't back down, because if we do, then it's it's just all lost for nothing. So that is my goal, and I'd like to see the people in my office continue to move up in the union. I'm real big on upward mobility. I love that they are interested and they still want to attend these, Title 38 trainings that we're doing virtually after hours with AFGE, that they're wanting
Yes.
to attend the workman's comp, the things that Dr. Robertson's been putting out. And, it's just, they're very active, and we're staying, we're in the fight, we're here, and we're not going anywhere. And I just want everyone to know that those that you guys are paying dues, it's like, that's some people protest, some people raise hell on social media, some people write their congressman, some people pay dues every 2 weeks or fund whatever campaign they feel is for them. But paying your dues right now is so important. That's part of you fighting. That's you giving this money to our attorneys to go up on the hill and to fight these attacks. And and so just keep fighting with us, because we collectively we can win. We can do this.
And we will.
I agree.
We will win. Brandi, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. We were hoping to have you on the show earlier. We ended up having some setbacks. And you know what? I'm so glad that we were able to get you here today, because you are uh, just another image of what our union is, and what the fight is all about. It's about having people like you who don't give up, who stay in the fight, who keep fighting even when the odds are against you. You're still fighting because you know that at the end of the day, um, we're gonna win. So thank you so much for what you're doing, Brandi. Where can people find more about your content?
So I am on TikTok and Instagram. I have a page called VA Union Mama, and to be honest, I haven't been as active as I should have been lately. I've just as since we've gone back to work, it's been a little crazy, and I'm a union mama, so I've got kids that keep me very busy as well. So, but I'm VA Union Mama on TikTok and Instagram are probably the best way to get to us. And I also We're AFGE 446 on Instagram and on Facebook. And I also run the Central Labor Council page, which is on Instagram and Facebook. That's WNCCLC. So you'll see me out there. You'll see me doing something someday. I keep signs in my car because you never know when I'm going to jump out and just join.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I feel you. I'm trying. I'm on the same struggle. I'd love to push content every day, but we're doing as much as we can with the time we have. So just keep on the fight, Brandi. Again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, and keep doing the work you're doing and getting those stories out there, brother.
Thank you. And for all of viewers, union leaders across the country like Brandi, they are uniting to send a message. We are stronger together, and our voices will not be silenced. That is the heart of this movement, and it is exactly why we are doing these videos. So if you find value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to our Rights Watch channel over in YouTube. Follow us wherever our podcast is available. Share this episode with a friend, a coworker, family member, because every share helps amplify these voices and strengthen our movement. Also remember, if you have a story to share, we are the platform to let your voice be heard. So reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. This has been one of our many ongoing stories that we're going to have here on Rights Watch. So thank you so much for listening to us today. Until next time, stay safe. God bless. And remember, we are not giving up.